Welcome back. In this video, we're just going to be kind of rounding off what we've done in this casual games popular game mechanics series. We're going to be doing how do we do scoring, and we're going to do a simple timer so that we can do something with the result of what we have. So I'll be alternating and doing different things in different projects. So in this one, we're going to do the scoring, and then we're just going to move to one of my other mechanics for a timer. So what do we need? We're going to need some sort of pickup. So I'm just going to very quickly create a cylinder for a coin. Just reset it to the middle of the world. I'm just going to scale it down to resemble something like a coin, maybe 0.01. It's a little bit thin. Let's go to 0.05 just to kind of make it look. And then I'm just going to rotate it 90 degrees and just move it up half a unit up, so it's around about the same height as the player. I'm going to want to do some animation just so that it's not dull and boring. I'm just going to grab a random color to add onto this coin. Let's actually create a new material here. Let's call this coin. Let's just give it a color, any color. I think it's kind of pinky color should be good. I'm just going to grab my coin. Where is it? Cylinder there. Let's just call this coin mesh. And I'm going to animate this real quick. I'm going to go to Window, Animation, open up the animation window, dock it down to the bottom here. Hit Create to create an animation on the selected object. We're going to go out of here, go into the animations, and let's call this coin cheapest. Rotate. I'm going to hit the record button so that I don't have to worry about what I'm actually setting keyframes. I'm just going to move it and move it back to set the first keyframe. And I think I'm going to do it over a second. I'm going to rotate this 360 degrees. I think it's in the Z. There we go. I want to push play. You'll see that it's kind of got this little stop and start at the end, so I want to fix that. I'm going to go to my curves, press F to select all of to zoom in. I want to go Control A to select all of them, right click, go both and make them linear. Linear will just allow it to kind of be more of a robotic movement where there's no ease in or ease out. Okay, so that's my coin animation. That's the extent of all the animation we're doing on this coin. I'm going to create an empty object to put this coin on, because what happens if I want to move this object now and then push play, you'll see that the coin is going to pop back to where the animation initially was created. No, it did not. Oh, because there's no positional values. Okay, so we don't have to actually worry about that. That's good. That's one less. So with this done, I'm just going to turn this into a prefab in case I do any updates. I want to grab a coin. Actually, let's just call this coin underscore bolt, just so that I have a reference point for this. We need to also add a capsule collider, which is fine, and the capsule collider I want to set to is trigger so that it doesn't overlap anything weird, so that it doesn't stop the the player from moving, just triggers the events. I'm just going to rename this one to C# for later. Okay, so now that we have our coin bolt, all we need is a capsule collider with its trigger on it so that we can trigger stuff. And we're going to do the very simple code on this, but we can now position this. Again, if you followed my object pooling procedural generation level, you're probably going to want to do it a little bit different to what I'm doing it here. This is still my manually kind of placed coin level system, so I haven't actually gone in and created a procedurally generated for these mechanics still. So we're currently working on a small little workshop that I will share the videos online, so you can see how me and two other of my students are kind of just within a period of like about 4 or 5 hours. We're just going to make a game from beginning to end, and you can kind of just follow that. We're just going to be talking rubbish and just coding and doing art. Okay, so there we go. So those are my coins. They're all prefabs. So if I do something to one, it'll update to the other. So I'm going to select the first coin, and I'm going to add a flow machine. I'm going to create a new script. Let's call this coin. Yeah, just call it coin bolt or whatever you want to call it. And we're going to remove all of these. We don't need any of these functions in here. I'm going to maximize this window. What I do want to have is a very simple kind of like way to kind of tell, if you will, tell the value of the coin. So I'm going to select the coin, go to object. I'm going to add this. Let's call this coin amount. So this is the amount the coin is worth. I'm just going to make this into an integer, and let's just say for now it's like 20. If I pick up this coin, it's going to give me a value of 20. And pretty much that's it. So I'm going to be making a scene variable for whatever scene I decide to. No, this is going to cause grief. So let's just go into the graph and let's add a reference to the manager ref. It's going to be a game object. It's not a game object. Let's try that again. And for now, I'm just going to, you'll see when you try to select it, it's going to look inside of the project. So we're going to have to make a reference to this. So when we start the game, we are going to hold down Alt and drag in the manager reference. I'm going to type here game object dot find. I'm going to find something with a specific tag. We don't have it yet, but we want, when we do it, we will be, I think we'll just give this a tag of like manager or something. Let's just call it that for now. So we're going to find the manager, we're going to plug it into this reference so we can reference the manager. So over here, all we're doing at the start is get a reference to the game manager. There we go. So all we're doing is getting a reference to the game manager so that we can tell the game manager what the current score that we just got from this coin that we have. Next step is we're going to do an onTrigger enter. So onTrigger enter. We're going to make sure that it's colliding with the player. So we're going to do a compare tag, GameObject.compare tag, and the Unity's default tag for player is player. I'm going to make sure that I've actually tagged my player as player, or this is not going to work. And if that's true, then we're going to do something. Only if it is true. So we don't care about if it's false. We don't, because it is going to be triggering potentially with other objects. So we want to make sure that this is true. So if this is the case, we're going to want to do something. We don't have the manager just yet, but we are going to create a custom trigger here, give it a name, and then we'll go to the manager and create the same thing. So we're going to say trigger custom event. Let's call this update score. Whatever you want to call it. I'm just calling it update score over there. And this is the first time we're going to be using what they call arguments. In code, we can tell an event or a function or a method to receive information. So where it says argument 0, we're going to put in 1. So now you'll see that it requires an input. That input is simple enough. We're going to use our coin amount as the value we want to transfer to the manager. We want to tell the manager, by the way, when you call this function, we're sending information with it. I'm sending someone with the information. So I'm sending this amount through to this over here, but the function isn't currently anywhere, but it is going to be on the manager. So we're going to go back to our graph, grab the reference to our manager, and plug it into where it says self. You can see we can add multiple arguments. So we could have, let's say, if we wanted to know the name of the enemy that dealt damage to us, let's just go crazy here. Let's say the top one would be the name of the enemy, the second one would be the his level, and the last one would be his damage. And if someone hit you, you could send all of that information to the player so the player can be aware of who hit him, what level that player was, the enemy was, and the damage that you took from him. Now, unlike code where you have to specify what these arguments are, these arguments take in what they are based on the variable you plug in. So this argument is now an integer because the coin is an integer. Okay, after we call the manager, we say destroy the coin. So we're going to say destroy. We're going to go GameObject.destroy there. And what are we destroying? This is simple enough. You just drag off and type in self. We're destroying ourselves, or in this case, the coin is destroying itself after we have met all of these conditions. Okay, so let's put a comment around this and call this destroy coin on pickup and update score on manager side. There we go. More like tell the manager to update the score. But anyway, so that's all we need on the coin. It's pretty simple. The coin is the only thing, the only important part on the coin side is just the value of the coin. The reason I did it this way is that some coins you might have like a bigger coin, or you might have different colored coins, and each of those coins can have a different value. So you might want to you want the value rather to be on this side than to be on the manager's side. Okay, now that we've got the coin, I'm going to click, I'm going to go and say apply all so that we can have it applied to all the other coins. And now I'm just going to go and create an empty game object, which is Control Shift N. If you're wondering why I didn't go to right click and say create empty, I just went Control Shift N and created an empty game object. We're going to rename this one to manager, just for the time being should be fine. And what have I done? The manager is going to need its own flow machine. We're going to create a new script. Let's call this manager. There we go. And we're going to go into the manager here, and we're going to do a few things. We're going to need a few variables and also a few references to UI, which we don't have just yet, so we're going to be doing that as we go. But what I do want to do is just let's do the counting first, and then we can come back and do the UI. So let's start by, let's delete this stuff for the time being, and let's go in here and let's create that custom event that I was talking about that we created in the coin. And I think it was called update score, I think. Let's double check that. I want to make sure that that name matches this name. So I'm going to copy that name, Control C, Control V, and remember we need an argument, so we have to add in an argument, and this is going to be the value we want to bring in. So let's create a graph variable and call this current score, and that's going to be an integer, and we're going to just simply update the current score, see if that works. So we're going to grab the current score, we're going to hold down Alt and grab it back in again. We're just going to update the current score with this value. So we're going to take this value and we're going to go add this value to the current score and update the current score to mirror that value that we just added. So let's see if this works. All we're going to do is whenever we pick up a coin, it's going to update this current score. Now you can't see a graph variable without having to go to Window and go to variables. I'm going to just dock these variables down here so I can actually see this current score on the manager, just to see if it updates. So it should be 0 when we start the game. There we go. Why did my current score not update? Current score update. Let's just see if we got any errors. We got there's no tag. That's obviously, no, it is tag display. You're talking rubbish. Which tag are you referring to? Not defined. Okay, so I'm going to select one of these coins and make sure. Oh, the manager's not tagged. That makes sense. So I'm going to grab the manager. I'm going to add a new tag. I do have a manager tag here, but I'll leave that one and we'll create a new one. Let's call this coin manager for now, just so we don't get any confusion. So I'm going to call this one here coin manager. So it's become accustomed to looking at your code both in the console and also inside of the actual application. It gets a little bit tricky if you're like, oh, but nothing happened, because the game doesn't necessarily stop when you. Okay, my current score did not update again. Let's see why. I'm going to grab this coin here and I'm going to see if it actually gets the correct manager. So at the start, it did not. Is it because I spelled coin manager? Oh, I didn't again. Oh my word. Sorry guys. In my brain I did actually tag this as coin manager. but clearly I did not tag it as coin manager. Okay, so now that we have the coin manager, we should be able to actually get the coin score. There we go, 20, 40, 60, 80, and there we go. So the score is updating. Now that we got the score updating, we can do a few things. First of all, we'd want to display the score to the on screen. So we want to be able to see it. So let's start by simply doing that. So we'll need to go. I normally add my canvases directly to my manager. If you don't have to, but it's just for this exercise, it's quite easy. So I'm going to go to UI and I'm going to add a text. It's going to create a canvas. I'm going to select my canvas and say scale with screen size. I'm going to set my resolution to be 1920 by 1080, which is your standard HD resolution. I'm going to call this one in-game HUD. So the in-game HUD is going to control just this text here that we have. I'm going to also align my text to the, let's make it to the top left. So I'm going to select this, hold down Alt and click in the top left, just to like move the, actually I think, there we go. I think if you hold down Alt, not Control, sorry, I was pressing the wrong one. If you hold down Control, it will just set the actual offset of the starting point. If you hold down Alt, it will actually move the text and shift it to that location. So I'm going to make this text a little bit bigger. Now, if your text pops away like that and you don't want to go and actually extend this holding shape, you can just go and tell it to, on the horizontal, to just overflow and set the vertical overflow to also overflow, just so that the text can be as big as you want it. It's not being held hostage by the holding shape here. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger and change the color, probably just to this color of this platform here. I'm going to make it bold and italic. Please change your fonts. Don't use the font that I'm using. This is just standard Unity font, which is fine, which is just your standard Arial, but it's always better to kind of design and have some design sense and consideration for when you're doing this sort of thing. Okay, so that's going to be my text. Let's rename this to UI score text. So that's going to be my UI score text. That's going to be taking in the score that I create and putting it into there, or at least the coin. Let's not call it score. Let's call it UI coin text. There we go. That is more accurately what that is. Okay, so over here I'm going to create a new variable under the object on the manager, and this one's going to be let's call this UI coin text. I'm going to make a reference to the text on the actual object. If you're wondering what that is, I'm just going to grab this and just assign it here. We're referring to the text component on this object. So it knows if I try to drag something that doesn't have a text, it won't allow it. The reason it allowed this to go there is because it has a text component on there. So I'm just going to clear that out just so that you can see what happens. I don't want that. Okay. Now that we have a reference to the text, we can do some stuff. So over here, we're going to be updating our text. So we're going to grab our UI text and drag off and type in text.text and do a set. So we want to set the text on this actual component that we have to something. And remember, orange dots means they're strings, so we can't just grab this current score and plug it into there. You need to do a conversion from some sort of value to a string. So we're also going to do a little bit of formatting. So I'm going to drag off here. I'm going to try something new as well. It's going to be a string.format. I'm going to allow for a single argument to be added into this format. I wonder what happens if I do this one. Oh, you can do a list. Nice. Anyway, sorry. I just wanted to know what that was. Type in format, single argument, and the single argument is actually going to be this score. That's going to be what we want to convert into the text. And the argument, the formatting allows us to put some text together. So inside of, just before the text shows up, we're going to say coins and two little dots. And then after that, you have to specify what you want the argument to be, the formatting for the actual current score. So I'm going to put in curly bracket 0 curly bracket. I guess we could put 0 0 just in case we get more or could be 000. We could do that. So this is going to be the formatting. So it's going to say coins 00. And now we're going to double check to see if this works. So this will only update once we pick up the first coin. So this should stay blank, at least for the time being, until we pick up our first coin. There we go, 20, 40, 60. And notice how it's got the word coins in front of it. That is coming from that, and the internal formatting is coming from that value there. And what's nice, again, what I spoke about earlier, so let's say I want this first coin that I have to have a greater value than the rest. All I do is go here and say make this one, actually let's make it less. Let's make that's a value of 1 and leave the others to be 20. So what we can do is what's nice about this being on each of the objects, that one gave me a 1, 21, 41, 61. So there we go. Don't think this formatting actually makes a big difference. I'm going to just put this back to, I wonder what happens, hold on, if we just do that. Bear with me. This is something I've been doing in code, and I just wondering how it works in bolts specifically. So, okay, so it does need some form of argument in there. So I think we're going to go and just put a single 0 in there. Should be fine. Okay, so now that we have that and it's going to show up, all we need to do is keep counting the score, and then when we die, we need to do something when we die. So let's just put a comment around this. Let's say update score. That's what we're going to be doing there. We're just going to do something at the start really quickly so we can update that UI. We don't want that UI to kind of be blank until we decide to update it. So I'm going to grab this one here, that one there, that and that. You probably would want to make a custom function for this so you don't have to copy these nodes around the whole time. There we go. We'll keep it nice and neat like this. And we're just going to again put in a comment group around this and say update UI at start with the current score. That's all we're doing. So the current score at the start should be 0, 0 or 0. So, but we want that to show up. We want that to not just be something blank until all of a sudden, wow, you just got score. What happened there? So let's try this out and see what happens. We should have coins 0 in the top left. Okay, it does need to. Okay, sorry. I know what the argument is saying. The argument is saying that we need to put the correct number. So because we're going up by a certain value, this does need to be, if it would let me select it, 0, 0. Like we had it originally because of the amount that we're going up by. So that should rectify that problem. Apologies. This formatting thing, it's a little bit, I'm a little bit new to it. No, why are you still giving me issues? String builder was not in the correct format. I'm just going to type this again. So let's go coins like that, 0, 0, like that. I think I might actually have a space in there, and that's what is causing. Yes, I did. That is what was causing the error. The space. It doesn't like spaces, at least not inside of the curly braces. There we go. 0, 1, 21, 41. Okay, good. So what we're going to do is we're going to add, just do a little bit of a, what's the word? We're going to be adding a little check to see what the current, like if our current score is exceeded our high score. So in our graph here, we're going to go and create a variable called high score. It's also going to be an integer, so it's easier to compare the two. And then we're going to just do a branch here. And we're going to check to see if our current score is greater or equal to our high score. Actually, it should be greater. You don't want to. So greater than our high score, and if so, we're going to just set the Does it have to be high score or saved score? No, I don't think we need this value actually. Variable. We are going to create a variable, but it doesn't need to be that specific one. So let's delete this one and let's actually go to the saved and delete. I'm going to delete that. Let's call this saved high score. So we're just going to call this one saved high score, and then we're going to compare it to that. Oh my gosh, hold on. Let's try to do that again. Then we're going to compare it to that. So if the saved high score is less than the current high score, then we're going to the current score we're going to update to the saved high score. I'm going to duplicate this node to the current high score. So we're going to put a comment around this and call it, or a group, call this check if the player has, let's call it beat the high score. Check if the player has beat the high score. That's as simple as I think I can word it. That's exactly what we're doing here. We're checking to see if the last time you played or the last playthrough you had, you have beaten the high score. If so, then you're going to become the new high score. This is going to be your new value. That is that is really, really simple. Initialize here. Okay, so I have two values. I want to remove these for now because those are saved. So you can remove the saved. So it will store a backup. So what's nice about Bolt is it does all the kind of the heavy lifting for you. You just have to remember to load and save those values. Okay, let's continue. Now that we have this, we can actually test to see if this works. I'm going to go to my saved high score, which should be an integer. That was weird. And I'm going to double check to see if I pick one up, the first one should already fire through because it's currently set to 0, my high score. There we go. My new high score. That is my current high score. Let's go to the save, and that is my saved high score. So now the scoring system is saving. We are deleting coins. We're doing everything that we need to do. We are now going to need to have a we're basically going to need to have a let's say what happens when you collide with something. We don't have any of that kind of stuff at the moment. We're just having him hit the stuff and we're not restarting the level or having a little menu pop up or something. We need something. So I'm going to go create that real quick. It's not going to be pretty, guys, but it's going to work. So inside of my manager, I'm just going to right click and create a new UI, and it's going to be a panel, just something to put in the background. So, and you'll see I've created a new canvas. I'm also going to change this one to scale with screen size, 1920 by 1080. And I'm going to just adjust because this panel normally will fill the entire screen, the rect transform. I'm going to probably want to scale this down, but if you look at the object, it's currently filling everything. So I'm just going to choose the middle, and then I'm going to change the resolution, the width and the height of this. So I'm going to make this something like 600 by, I don't know, 800. I think should be good. Change the opacity so it's not completely transparent like that, and also just change the color. Maybe just choose that color as the basis. There we go. Wow, I'm about to make something really ugly, guys. Don't do what I do. Yo, it's ugly. Okay, there we go. So this is going to be just the panel, and remember in canvases, everything is starting from top down. Everything at the top of a canvas is right at the back, and everything below, in order, starting from the top down, goes from the back to the front. So if you ever have a button and you can't see the button, I'll show you now when we create one. The reason for that is because that object is behind another one, which means it's above in the stack. So, but again, I'll show you now quickly. But in this case, we're going to just add everything to our panel. So the panel is our parent. We're going to right click. I'm going to go UI. I'm going to add a new text. This one is going to be called, let's just call it result text. Like, what is the result of us playing? You'll see the text over there. I just want to justify to the middle. and to the center, and I'm just going to want to make sure that it is 0, 0 to the parent. Remember, these are to the parent. And I want to scale this up, also make sure that overflows on both so I don't have to scale up the UI. And this is going to be my resulting text, so I think 70 is good. And I'm going to just change this to bold, and I'm going to change the color. Let's make it something like a nice light gray, I think. There we go. And let's just call this result so we can see what these do. So this is the result that we're using. And I'm just going to duplicate this text and call this one high score. And that's going to be the high score. So it's going to look something like this, high score. And then we're going to go whatever the value is, 0, 0, 0. So I want my high score to respect the vertical truncating. Sorry, not vertical, my apologies, horizontal. And then I'm just going to go to my text, hit T, and you'll see that the text is trying, but I'm going to make the text bigger, the holding shape, like that. That should be good. Make sure that it's back at 0 in the X, and I'm just going to move it up a little bit, just so that it's not on top of the player text. So that's going to be my high score text. This is going to be the result of that text. And then all that's left to do is just to add a button. So I'm going to add a button outside of the panel, but I'm going to add it in anyway. I just want to show you what I mean by them being in front or behind. So I'm going to add a button. Notice how the button's in front, but if I move it behind the panel, the button's now behind. So if I move it up, so I'm going to just parent this button to the panel so it's all together in one thing. And then we're just going to add one button here, which I'm going to hold down Control and hold down Shift to scale up this button. When I mean scale, I'm changing the width and the height, not the physical scale. Please do not ever scale UI. You're going to get really ugly results, and you're going to be wondering why your UI looks horrible. Okay, this button is going to be the, let's try, retry or restart. Let's try, call it retry. Retry, and I'm going to just change the text of this button to say retry. I'm just going to scale that text on the font on that button up. Retry, and let's make this bold and italic just for a little bit of a difference. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this retry button to make a basically a go back to main menu kind of button. So let's call this menu button. You can also not use text, you could also just use images, which is very common with mobile games, so you probably want to do that as opposed to this. I'm just doing this because it's easier than at this point than doing going and finding some UI images online. There we go. So now that's my canvas, and my canvas has this one has a panel. So this canvas is going to be called, let's call this end game screen. Let's call it that. It's going to be my end game screen, and that's going to be my end game screen. So we only want this to pop up basically if the game is over. So I'm going to turn this off by default. This will pop up when the game is over. So by default, that's going to be off. So we're going to need a few references to these objects we just created. So inside of my here, we're going to make a reference to, we got the UI coin. So now this one's going to be the UI result text. So we have a reference to the result text. It's going to be a text as well. And I'm going to just open this up and find my result text, which is there, and drag that in. And I'm going to create another one called UI high score text. This one's going to be a text. If you're wondering how I name my variables, it's just whatever comes naturally to me. I normally don't start with an uppercase for my variable names, and then I camel case it between the words, just so that I can read them a little bit easier. So that's going to be my high score text there. Probably should rename this to UI result. And this one, not that you need to, I already got the word text in it, so there we go. Okay, so now that we have reference to those, we can update those when we need to. And then we need a reference to the actual panel. So over here, we're going to say end game screen, and it's going to be a game object, and we're going to make a reference to this entire screen here as what we need to turn on and turn off. So let's do that. So when we're gonna come back and forth between all of this stuff as we go, but we need to have so the player is going to collide with something, and then it's going to turn on that panel. So we could do that on the player side, or simply enough, we're going to go and create a new custom event here, keeping everything manager related in the manager. And we're going to call this one enable end screen. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to enable the end screen when we call this custom event. And we're going to start by, first I like to always update my UI stuff before I actually turn my UI on. So in this case, we're going to go and say, let's grab the UI result, text, UI high score, and we're going to update those first before we do anything else. So we're going to drag off the UI result. I'm going to type in text.text. I'm going to set that. And I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm going to set that one for the high score. So we're going to update the high score on that screen, because we are tracking the high score. Remember, we just need to show it like this is what the high score was, and this is what you got, kind of thing. So the high score, I'm not going to have any kind of format. I'm going to have formatting in the high score, but over here I'm just going to show what you got. So we're going to grab the current score, and we need to convert it. So we're going to type in to string, and this is an integer, so we're going to go int to string and plug that directly in there. That'll give us the result that we want. And then the next section, let me actually just do what I've been doing up to this point, kind of giving it a little bit of breathing room between the code so you can see. Okay, and then this one over here is going to update the manager, but I want to have some kind of formatting like we've done in the past. So we're going to drag off here and type in string.format. We only need one argument, and what is the value that we're pumping through? We're pumping through our saved high score into where it says arg, and then the above is obviously the formatting that we're going to need to do. So we're just going to type in over here high score, and then space, curly brackets 000, small braces. Depends on how big you think your high score is going to get. I don't think mine will go greater than 3. I really don't. But anyway, that's just that's the kind of formatting I want to do. Okay, and that should do it. So that when we end the game, oh, one more thing. My apologies. We're going to enable, obviously, we're going to enable the end screen. So I'm going to drag the end screen, drag off and type in game object dot set active, and that means that needs to be true. So once we've updated all the UI elements on that so that we don't get any weird pops, I'm then going to turn it on so we can see it. And then the last thing I want to do is, so that the game doesn't continue playing in the background, is I want to set the time scale of the game to 0. So it basically essentially pauses the game. So we're going to drag off this and go time scale set to 0, which means there's going to be absolutely no time moving while we're in the menu. So let's just drag that, put a comment around this and saying what happens when the game ends. So this is the reason I'm saying what happens is that is up to you what happens, but this is what happens when the game ends on my end. You're going to probably want to add a few things and change a few things up. That is up to you. Okay, so now we need to go to the player to call this function if we hit an actual obstacle. So I'm going to copy that name one more time before I forget. I'm going to go to my player, and we're going to go to the bottom here. I'm going to do an on collision enter. So on collision enter, and I think the obstacles are called, let's see, obstacle. They're all tagged as obstacle, so that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to say if I collide with a compare tag, so gameObject.compare tag, obstacle like that. So if we hit an obstacle, then we're going to want to do a few things, or some things. So we're going to go into here, and like in the previous videos where we just restart the level, this time we're actually just going to say if this is true, we're going to go and trigger off that custom event. So we're going to type in trigger custom event, paste the name of that event like that, and all we need now is to do what we did on the coin, which is get a reference to the manager. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to go to the coin and steal that code. So I'm going to grab this code over here, this start update thing. I'm going to go back to my player, and I'm just going to paste it over here, and I'm just so that it's not confusing, I'm just going to delete this start and just plug this into that current start over there. There we go. Now we don't have this variable here. We just I just basically stole it from the coin manager. So I'm going to just copy this name. I'm going to go to where it says it needs to be in the graph. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to call this a game object variable so that we have that reference there. Okay, so now that we have that, we're going to say please speak to the manager and call the function called enable end screen only if we collide with the obstacle. So on collision with obstacle, send message to manager. That's all we're doing here. We're just saying when we collide with something, please tell the manager we have done so, and then the manager is very well aware of what needs to happen once we've collided with something. That's why we create managers, so that not all the code sits inside of like a player or something. It can be used across all the different objects, and you can call different events. So let's see what happens if that happens. So let's make sure that the name obstacle is spelled correctly. Okay, so when I hit this block in front of me, I should go straight into a pause menu or into the in-game menu. There we go. So now you'll notice the game is paused. No, there's no movement. The coins aren't animating anymore. And now we have this. We can see that the current high score is 60. And because we didn't collect any kind of coins, we have 0. And do we want to retry or go back to the main menu? So we need to do that. But let me just show you how it does actually update the player score by actually collecting a few coins. So I'm going to start the game. I'm going to collect a few coins. Let's try that again. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm going to move off the flow graph, combine these screens together just because my PC does struggle a little bit from performance when streaming, like recording videos. Oh my gosh, I suck at my own game. Sorry about this. Let's try this again. There we go. Got that one, got that one, got that one. I want to hit it. I got 41 coins, and the high score is 60. So everything is working. So all that is left to do is basically make those buttons do something. So when I click that button, I want to tell the manager, please restart the game or go to a main menu. Okay, so down here we're going to do it's called an on button click. It needs a reference to the button, so we're going to go into our object here, and at the bottom here we're going to say, let's call this retry button, and it's going to be a reference to an actual button. And then we're going to create another one, and let's just actually click here and select the retry button from the level itself because it's already there. Let's call this menu button. Let's make a reference to a button, and we should have a menu button. There we go. So now that we have those two, I'm going to grab the retry button and the menu button in here, plug the retry button into the on button click. What that automatically means is we're adding what they call a listener. So it's going to be listening for if this button gets clicked. If this button gets clicked, we do whatever's connected to the green node. If it doesn't, then ignore it. And we're going to do the same thing for the main menu button. We're going to listen for both of these buttons, and I'm just going to do something over here. I'm going to put a debug log in here. So I'm going to type in log, get a debug log, put a message in here. Let's call this let us go back to the main menu. And that you'll see straight away is going to work, because I don't know yet if I'm going to be making a main menu for this video. I have done it in previous videos, so I was thinking that it's quite a simple thing to set up. So let's see what happens when we actually hit the retry button. When we hit the retry button, we are going to drag off, and we're going to say load scene, looking for the one with the build index. It's just easier to do it this way. And from here, I'm going to type in get active scene. Can't do it from there, sorry. Type in get active scene. Wrong one, apologies. Get active scene. There we go. No, the other one was right. My bad. Get active. There we go. And from here, we just need to type in build to get the build index of that scene, which we'll plug into there. Okay, so all we're saying here is if we hit the retry button, just restart the level. That's all we're saying. So, and active scene, because this is the scene we want to restart. So when the retry button is clicked, restart the level. That's all we're doing here. So when we click the retry button, we should be restarting the level. Just put that over there, and then that should be it. So we should be able to hit the retry button and start all over again. So I'm going to end the game real quick. We got retry. Now, I'm glad this happened. Timescale doesn't untime it. Its timescale is currently set to 0. That's why the game did restart, but the character's not moving forward. So we need to set the timescale. So I'm going to duplicate this node at the start. So at the start of the game, we need to set the timescale back to 1. So when the game starts, let's just set the game back to its normal speed. You need to do that, or if you don't do that, the game will do exactly what we saw now. So if I start, hit retry, the game starts, retry. I can try to avoid this and get as many of the coins as possible. Then hit this wall. Now I have the highest score because I have 61, and that's the new high score. And when we retry, I'm going to hit this and see that the high score stays, but the current coin count doesn't. There we go. Now if I go to the console and click the main menu, it says let us go back to the main menu. So that button works as well. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, I'm not going to go ahead and create a menu. Unless you want to, you can add in the comments. I do, like I said, I already have a video on just doing a simple start menu with a start and quit button. So you're probably going to want to go ahead and do that. But that's it. So all we've done up to this point is we added some coins that add score. You can add individual scores for each of those coins. And when you hit an obstacle, you get confronted with this little UI element that gets enabled. It tells me what the high score is and what my current score is. It asks me if I want to retry or go back to the main menu. And then if I click retry, I start the game, play the game. And the moment I hit something, I realize that I just didn't get the high score, and I probably would want to go back to the main menu. And that's it. So I hope this has helped. I hope this has been fun. It's such a simple little thing, but it's something that adds a lot to your game. Again, with Bolt, it makes life so much easier when you can just simply save it in a saved variable, and you'll notice that there's initial and saved. Initial is the initial value, saved is the saved value. So if I want to start the game without this value, I just clear that out and start it over one more time, and you'll see that the high score when I hit this wall here is going to be 0. So I can clear out my saves. Okay, that's it. Be safe, and I'll see you at the next video. Thank you so much for watching, guys.